Welcome to PlotLines, where we'll use our over 30 years of experience in real estate communications to uncover the real stories behind real estate. I'm Heather Crowell.
And I'm Britni Acriveau. Dive in with us as we invite guests to break down the ever-changing landscapes of real estate together. Welcome back to PlotLines, a podcast all about rewriting headlines in the real estate space. Today, we're joined by Lauren Talley, the owner and principal of Cobalt Construction Consulting. Lauren, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, likewise. Why don't we dive right in? Tell us a little bit about yourself, about Cobalt, how you got into construction and real estate.
Well, I have a funny story that most people in my industry know here in St. Louis, but I went to school to be a professional figure skater. And
no way.
Work out very quickly. I attended the University of Denver and I really liked it there, but I was sort of lost in not knowing what I wanted to major in. And I had a really close friend from St. Louis ask me to go to a real estate course with him just as a random elective.
Okay.
And when I went to that class, something clicked and I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I should have known because as a kid, I played with Legos and Lincoln Logs instead of Barbies. And I owe my whole career path to my other friend from St. Louis that went to DU. But I've been in construction my whole career. I started out kind of in the home building world, which is common for those of us even in the commercial space. Building houses, and did that as an intern while I lived in Denver, Colorado, and then moving back home to my hometown of St. Louis, started to work in the commercial space. So I've been in the construction world, both on the general contracting side and then the owner's rep side, my entire career.
So that's a really interesting background. As I think you know, the premise of our show is sort of to uncover the truth behind the headlines underlying the real estate space. So some of the things that we've been hearing about are material costs and workforce gaps and how they'll shape the 2025 industry, the industry in 2025, sorry. And the other thing we hear a lot about is resources being diverted to data center construction and that type of thing. So curious to get your take on sort of what's going on in the greater construction landscape and where you see things shaking out in 2025.
So 2025 is sort of the first year in the last 5 years that we've been able to take a breath. I've been doing this for 20 years, and the first few years I was in the industry, we experienced the global downturn of 7, 8, and 9, and that was a roller coaster. But to be honest, the last 5 years have been an even more drastic roller coaster. Yep. I joke with folks in the industry all the time. It's like we've basically had to relearn how to do things because there are new curveballs being thrown at us all the time, whether it's labor shortages, material price changes, material shortages.
Right.
So we're really reaching a point now where we can take a breath for the first time and sort of recalibrate. Material pricing has leveled out a little bit. Okay. Labor shortages are still a problem, but it's not as drastic as it was back in 21, 22, 23. Okay. And now we're sort of figuring out what is our new norm. We've exited this COVID era of rapid building, and we're looking to see what the next 5 years look like. But it's a reset for all of us because it's just been, we've never had to work harder. We've never had to work smarter. Yeah. It's been unlike anything I could have ever imagined. And I'm exhausted, but I learned a lot. So I'd say it was worth it. But we're really, this is the first time, honestly, in 5 years where we can kind of take a break and say, where are we? What does this really mean? And recalibrate.
Sort of amazing that we do still talk about COVID. And when you think about it, that was 5 years ago. So it's a little wild that across industries, it's really had this prolonged impact and reshaped so many things that we do and how we live our lives. So.
Yeah. So Lauren, how do you help your clients navigate all of these fluctuations? And how are you even planning to help them sort of reset for the new year? What are some things that are top of mind?
I think one of the things that our firm really prides ourselves on is we really do intensive research on different topics. So, back, again, over the last 5 years, we would have suppliers come to us and say, oh, if you want to get this, the price suddenly went up 200% and you have no other choice. And we reject sentences like that. We say, we'll find another way. There's got to be other options. We can change, we can adapt. We'll look at other suppliers. We'll look at other countries. I don't care what we have to do, but there's always another option. And we really, again, we pride ourselves on digging up those other options, coming up with creative solutions, and as we like to say, seeing around corners. So we're trying to see these problems before they're even brought to our clients' attention.
Makes sense.
And we like to bring them 3 solutions and offer up, the pros and cons of each, and then they get to pick. And we'll often offer like, this is the one we would select and why. But we're really trying to, just think outside the box, be creative, and nothing like the last 5 years has ever pushed us to do that so much.
Right. Sure. Right. So talk to us a little bit about the landscape in St. Louis. I think a lot of your work is there where you're headquartered. Like what sectors are you seeing a lot of activity in? Where are your resources focused, and where are you getting the most new inquiries?
Well, I'll start with St. Louis is a very unique market. Even though we're located in the Midwest, we are a union market, which means all of our construction is typically union built. And that creates both pros and cons. We have a skilled workforce, but that means we often encounter labor shortages because we can't backfill as quickly. Everyone has to come up through the trades, and you can see why that would yield good and bad things. But investors and developers that come from out of town don't often expect that. And they think that our pricing will often be comparable to, Kansas City or other Midwestern markets, Cincinnati, Nashville. And our pricing is significantly higher because of that. Our market over the last couple of years, we sort of followed many of the national trends. We had a big sort of office boom, kind of 2010 to 2020. We followed the trend of the multifamily housing boom from 2020 to basically now, when a ton of products being delivered. And then we had what we would kind of call like the micro boom of industrial product during the COVID time of needing bulk warehouse space. Even though we're sort of what people would call a second tier market, we do tend to follow those national trends of product being desired by the overall national markets.
Okay, makes sense. So you hit on a couple sectors there, multifamily, industrial. Are there any others across the commercial landscape that you're seeing increased demand or shifting demand for that you're anticipating this year?
Yeah, the office market is very low demand. People are coming back to work, but they're taking smaller footprints. So there's just no demand for new office construction. We're just reconfiguring the buildings that we already have. People, I'm sure on your podcast have said this term, indefinitely flight to quality. People want amenities. They want nice building amenities, gyms, parking, all those things. Retail is making a comeback because people are going back to work. So retail is also having a little mini boom right now. And I see that being pretty successful into 2025, 26. People come back to the office, all of those kind of sandwich shops and lunch and coffee places that supported the office market. The demand for that's coming back. So those will have a resurgence. I think industrial will level out. I don't think, even though that was a micro boom, I don't think it's going to drop off, because people are not ordering less from Amazon. That's still happening. But that was a drastic, sudden reaction to everyone being home. And so it will kind of level off, but I don't think it's going to drop.
Yeah. What about multifamily? I know the Midwest has been so hot for multifamily for so long. Do you think it's going to continue to be sought after? Do you think we're going to see that stabilize at all?
What we're seeing is there was a ton of multifamily product that was delivered sort of in the last 18 months. And there's really no new product starting because financing is so difficult. And construction pricing rose basically 40% from 2020 to today. So not only in the last 5 years has our financing cost increased, but our construction cost has increased. So right now there's sort of an overabundance of multifamily product, but that will eventually get absorbed. And then in a couple
Right,
years,
right.
we'll be in a position where there's no new multifamily really being delivered because no one's
Yep.
putting shovel in the ground right now. And it will be an interesting dynamic in sort of 18 to 30 months to see
Yeah.
where this all shakes out. But multifamily was hot, hot, hot. We couldn't build enough
Right.
fast enough.
Right.
Right.
And now that has really like fallen off a cliff. I
Yeah.
will say senior living is extremely popular. It's very similar type of construction to multifamily.
Yeah.
Right.
It's still experiencing the same type of problems of multifamily, often in the financing world and cost of construction. But
Okay.
those statistics about the boomer generation retiring and needing places to live at all different price points,
Yeah.
it's prevalent, and that need is not going anywhere. So
Mm.
I see the senior living sector being extremely strong, pending we can find ways to get
Yeah.
money to do it.
Yeah, we're all getting older every day, right?
Yeah.
So let's pivot a little bit and talk about sustainability and the sustainability practices in construction that you're employing and that maybe your clients are interested in. Like, where are you seeing that heading? How are you supporting your clients in their sustainability goals?
Sustainability had a real moment, I'm going to say from 2008 to 2020 almost. People were doing LEED. People were starting
Yeah.
to do well. LEED and well were like the new black. Everybody wanted to do it. But when financing gets tight and money gets tight, sustainability, in all truth, is the first to go.
Right. Priorities.
So it has dropped off the list just because we are cutting everything we have to just to get projects out of the ground right now. They're extremely difficult. And as a lead AP myself, I very much hope that sustainability has a resurgence, because I think if we don't make more strides to make that part of the norm now, we're going to find ourselves in real trouble for the next generation in terms of how we construct things.
Yeah.
Especially, recycling materials. Low VOC paint, like, that's great. But when we tear a building down, we need to dissect that and figure out everything we can possibly reuse to reduce the strain on new raw materials from our earth.
Right.
But right now, it's really hard to bring that to the top of the list.
Yeah.
Because money is tight, and it does normally equate to a small to medium premium.
Right.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that candid perspective on it. How about, obviously, construction has such an impact on local communities. Even here at Gregory FCA, we're often sought out by developers looking for support for projects they're trying to get off the ground. How can they better communicate with the local community? How can they be a better neighbor in the project? Talk to us a little bit about how you consult your clients through that process, and what you're seeing that communities are looking for out of new development and new construction projects.
That's really hard. Communities want transparency.
Yeah.
They want all the details. How is their life going to be affected? How is the noise? What's the dust? What's the timing? What's the traffic?
How does this impact me?
Right. But the more you give them, the more it sort of leads to more questions and more pushback on the development. And it's really tricky. I mean, people need to understand that development is what moves our society forward, especially infrastructure. Yeah. People get upset when the roads are closed for, repairs or even filling potholes. And I'm like, but you don't like the potholes.
So which one is it?
Right. I would ask the community to be a little bit more patient with temporary setbacks for them for a longer, greater good. And that's easier said than done, because that's how I make a living. But it's a very difficult balance. We try really hard to be transparent and give a lot of info, but sometimes that comes back and gets used against us. So it's a constant balance. And I would say it really depends on the type of community you're in. You have to know your community, know the neighbors. If you're going to a new community, like, do your research, find out what's important to them. And provide community engagement, provide forums where they can feel seen and heard.
Yep. Yeah, that's great advice. I think people can be short-sighted, and I even think about my own construction in my own home and how I wish I had, known or thought about what the end game was going to be like when the dust was everywhere and I was inconvenienced. But at the end of the day, it's what you wanted, and it's the results are you long forget about the inconvenience
Disruption or,
because the results are what you were hoping for.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what you see emerging as we look ahead. We've talked a lot about costs rising or sort of rates are high. And what's on the horizon? What do you think is in store for people, and how will the construction industry pivot going forward?
One of the things that we're seeing is people are getting more creative than ever before in how to finance their projects.
Okay.
And that creates challenges, so historically, maybe if you're a developer, you're just looking for traditional financing and you could have gotten it at a cheap rate and you're got a shovel in the ground and off you go.
Yeah.
And people are looking at all kinds of stuff now. I mean, if you're eligible, we're looking at new market tax credits, historic tax credits, PACE, different methods of funding, grants. But since everyone's doing that, there's a strain on those resources.
Yeah.
And many of them have allocated buckets where there's only so much. And once those buckets are empty, you have to wait until the next year. So those who already had knowledge on those various sort of non-typical funding sources have a leg up right now because they know how to get them.
Okay.
It's a really interesting changing dynamic, but people are just getting, when the money is expensive as it is right now, you have to get creative or development dies. And it can't die completely. People depend on their livelihood. Yeah. So like I kind of started this conversation, we're thinking outside the box. We're thinking of new ideas, getting creative. How can we fund these projects in ways that we never thought before? And you'll probably find our capital stacks are just more diverse now. And it's not just about getting the money, but it's the compliance tied to the money you're getting. Yeah. A lot of those funding sources have different requirements about, timelines in which you have to build, the workforce in which you have to use, all different kinds of things that we have to track and be conscious of. And it's a new frontier of things we're not used to. But again, we're learning and adapting.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
All right. Well, I think that segues well into our last question, which is to give you the opportunity to sort of write your ideal headline for the construction space and commercial real estate outlook for the year. So what would that look like if you could write your own?
If I were writing a tagline for really the folks in my industry, again, we're tired, okay? Like we're I would say, be patient, be fair, and be creative.
Okay.
And that's what we have to be looking into really the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think that's great advice.
Yeah. Terrific.
Okay. Is there anything, Lauren, that we didn't cover that you think our listeners should know?
I don't think so. I would just say to those out there, construction has a stigma associated with it. Often they think we're like gangsters and mobsters, and it's not that. It's a really great industry. I would definitely encourage anyone listening to this, like, get your kids involved. Tell them it's a great career path, whether it's in the trades or on the management side of things. Yeah. It's not the way they portray it in movies. It's a really interesting and dynamic career across many disciplines. It involves accounting and legal and not just working in the field. I'm proud to be a part of it, and I'm hoping very much that myself and my firm is sort of changing the narrative on what people think about when they think about construction.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I love to see a new building go up. I just love the magic of starting as dirt and ending as a building. So
we do too.
So we appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Lauren. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
This podcast is a production of Gregory FCA. If you enjoyed our discussion, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts